Have you ever thought about doing the Ramsey baby steps? If you're not super familiar with what they are, I'll post them on the screen for a second here. So there's 7 baby steps. Um, I think this is really a timely video for a lot of people because you know that there's a lot of struggling out there in the economy, and a lot of people are having a hard time making ends meet. And I think a lot of the difficulties are oftentimes linked to debt. And so I'm going to tell you my story. I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but I've done the Ramsey baby steps, and I've got a story for you. So, about 3 years ago, I got a divorce, and long story short, I had about $37,000 in non-mortgage debt. I am a homeowner, and so I was able to keep my house. But I was kind of in a bit of a predicament, because I'm an educator. So when I'm working, I'm working hard. Do have some time off in the summer, and many of you that are educators, you know what I'm saying about time off. There's always some sort of training going on, or if you do summer school, or you need college credits, or whatever the case may be. So long story short, what I decided to do, I decided that I wanted to have that 37 grand paid off in a year. I'd be willing to settle for a year and a half, but my goal ultimately was a year. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this in a year, I'm not going to be able to do this on just my salary. It's just not going to happen. So what I decided to do was I got a second job. So for that whole year, I worked 2 jobs, 5 days a week. When it came down to the summertime, I worked in the summer, and I'm going to run through these steps with you and tell you basically my results of trying to go through these steps. So step 1 is to get $1,000 in an emergency fund. I've been really shocked. I've seen different stats on it, but it's kind of shocking with how few people in the US actually have $1,000 in the bank. And people are critical of the Ramsey solution, guys, that 1,000 isn't enough, etc. For me personally, it was enough because it kind of lit a fire under me. Because when you're living with $1,000 in the bank and you don't have access to credit or a credit card, because when I started this process, I had no access to a credit card. And so I looked at it like, okay, well, it's pretty uncomfortable living with $1,000 in the bank for any period of time. So that's what I did. I had $1,000 in there. And matter of fact, 1 month I actually miscalculated a bill. And I know you're probably thinking, like, how do you miscalculate this? I miscalculated something, the timing of something, and I went down to $400 in my account with no access to credit. So, I'm a person that's actually lived this, and it was not a perfect experience by any means, especially earlier on. So did the $1,000. When it went down to 400 that 1 month, I brought it back up to 1,000. So anyways, that's step 1. Step 2 is pay off all of your debts except the house. So I told you I had 37,000 in debt. Worked 2 jobs, 5 days a week. Again, worked during the summer. I threw everything but $1,000 at the debt every month. That means from both jobs. So, the Ramsey solution people always say, beans and rice, rice and beans. And some people think that's literal. That's not literal, by the way. It just means keep your grocery costs low. I was running lean. I do have a child. And, so obviously weeks when I have her, I'm going to spend more on groceries because there's 2 people versus 1, of course. But when I was by myself, I would lower that grocery bill to $50 to $75 a week. And so I just cut my bills as low as possible. I didn't have any subscriptions I was buying. It was just cut really lean. Now, what Dave says is to put your debts smallest to largest. I did do that. Mine were just kind of chunked out. I had the remainder of a car, which was like $12,000. And then the rest, I had in a loan that was kind of used to close out my divorce, since that was $25,000. So I basically had those 2. So I started just throwing everything at the car. And I ended up getting that paid off. And then all I had left was the bigger one. And you'd be amazed, if you're working a couple jobs and you're throwing everything you can at debt and you're running super lean. I'm a big football fan, and I'm talking no Sunday ticket. I'm talking, all of that, cut it all. So, long story short, I did that, and I paid off that $37,000 in 11 months. And looking back on it now, even with working the 2 jobs, even with working the summer, I still don't know how the heck I did that. But I did it. It was not fun. There were a lot of days where I'm just like, I gotta quit doing this. This is just ridiculous. What's another half year? What's another year? I did not want to keep living like this. And I know that there's a lot of people out there hurting right now financially. For me personally, I just ripped the Band-Aid off. I doubled down on making more money. I was selling stuff too, some of the stuff that I owned, to try to make up that difference also. So between the 2 jobs, selling stuff, I'm a sports card, not cars. I'm a sports card, nerd alert, collector. And I sold off a bunch of my collection too to help pay this off. But I did it. And I tell you, at the end of it, I had a little bit over $1,000 left. It was just like the best feeling in the world. And now I got a paid for car. I have no other debt. And at the time, when I got done paying it off, I had maybe $1,000 left, maybe a little bit over, maybe a little under, I don't remember. But it was the best feeling in the world because I just didn't owe anybody any money. And yeah, I still got a mortgage, but budgeting and bills are so much easier to handle, even times of high inflation. Because yeah, we've been through some inflationary times for sure. It's so much easier though when you don't have a car note, you don't have credit card bills, you don't have all these types of things. And so, it was just the best feeling in the world, and I did it. And so, continuing on with these steps, right? So step 3 of the baby steps is to save 3 to 6 months of expenses. So I deviated a little bit in that they always talk about gazelle intensity to pay off your debt, which I did. I wasn't like gazelle intense in building up that emergency fund. Like I said, I'm a card collector. I started buying cards again. I started going out to eat some more. If I went out to eat during that year when I was paying off debt, it was picking up something cheap, picking up some Panda or picking up some McDonald's, something cheap. I didn't go out to like any fancy restaurants, stuff like that. I just, was just throwing that money at the debt. And so it took me a little bit longer. It took me probably, I had a bunch of other bills and stuff come up, just normal like house things and stuff. It probably took me between 8 and 10 months to build up like 5 to 6 months of an emergency fund. And that's kind of like, I don't like going below 5 or 6 months. I do like that idea, especially now. There's a loud truck. Been some planes going by earlier too. I don't like going beneath like 5 or 6 months of expenses. It just gives you great comfort, and you keep hearing about different layoffs in certain types of industries and stuff. Having a 5 to 6 month emergency fund for me has just felt great. It just gives you that extra security in knowing that you have those funds set aside. And I don't touch those for anything. Like I pretend those funds aren't there. And, where I pay bills and stuff like that, it comes out of a different account. High yield savings accounts are paying pretty good right now. I think the last time I checked, I think mine's paying 5%. So you can find some good online high yield savings accounts. You just want to make sure they're FDIC, all that. So you can do some research on that if you're interested. But so it took me a little longer, 8 or 10 months to build that up. 4 is 15% in retirement savings. So it's a little bit different in my line of work. Between the match and what we get, 15% is basically mandatory. I will say this, when I was paying off debt, I stopped all investing. I wasn't putting money into a brokerage. I wasn't investing anything above the mandatory minimums that we have to, because I wanted to pay off debt. And so those are the choices that you have to make. And so I did stop that. I'm with this one, So Dave basically, the Ramsey solution people say, hey, you want to invest 15% of your own money, and then the match is just gravy. So since I built up that emergency fund, I'm doing 15% of my own money minimum, and then plus the match. So I'm following that. So basically, if you look at the purity of Ramsey Solution steps, I'm on 5, 6, and 7. 5 is pay for your kids' college. 6 is pay off the house early, and then 7 is build wealth and give. So I'm in that range, and I watch a lot of YouTube content. Right, I just get a lot of enjoyment, entertainment out of it, and I watch a lot of channels, and there just does seem like there's a lot of people out there struggling, and I really think that if you're having a hard time financially, that giving these baby steps a look, it really worked for me. I have nothing but good things to say. With that said, I did deviate from a couple things. So, one, they tell you that once you get out of debt, to never do credit cards, cut them up. Well, when I was getting out of debt, I didn't have a credit card, so that did apply to me. Since getting out of debt, I do have a couple credit cards, but I never carry a balance. And so if I have a big, let me give you an example. So I had to put a water softener into my house, and I had to have some other plumbing stuff done. So it's $3,000, whatever it was. It was nice to be able to put that on a credit card, and just make sure you have it paid off. I paid it off, before interest accrued. Because, they always tell you that, nobody's ever said that they got rich off airline miles. Yeah, but nobody's ever claiming they have. Like that, I've always thought that that's been a weird argument. They're like, nobody's ever built wealth or got rich off of airline miles. No, but people have traveled for free. And if you put necessary expenses on there, if you're not just blowing money, it's nice to have. It's nice to have 40, 50, 80, 90,000 airline miles over time to travel for free. So I definitely deviated there. Other than that, though, I followed those steps pretty well to a T. Another one where people sometimes get bogged down. They talk about how the Ramsey guys say that to line up your debts smallest to largest regardless of interest rate. And a lot of people push back. They're like, well, I'm not going to put something that's 4% interest ahead of something that's 26. I'm not going to do that just because it's smaller. I found that doing it that way, putting the smallest debts first, I found that to be a good idea, because it's not just a numbers thing. It is a habit thing. It is a psychological thing to get wins. And I know that I only had a couple debts, but they're bigger. They were larger debts. But it's a psychological thing, seeing that balance go down faster. So, overall, I had a really good experience in following these baby steps. And, if you're struggling right now and you got a lot of debts mounting up, based on my experience, I'd give it a look. It's done a lot of good for me. And I'm really happy that I did it. And I would definitely recommend it to others if you're just looking to get out of debt and try something else. There's other approaches. Sometimes people do the avalanche, things like that. And, you do whatever you're comfortable with. I can just tell you that the Ramsey steps were successful for me, for sure. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know sometimes when people watch, YouTube videos or listen to podcasts, they hear a lot of things, and it's just like, well, how many of your average regular Joes do this kind of stuff? And I would say that I fit that category, and I definitely would consider it. One last thing before I go. There's a lot of financial resources out there where you get a variety of opinions on things, and I've had a couple people ask me about this. They're like, what other type of content is there out there that you look into? Like, how did you learn about this stuff? There's just a lot of them. Outside of Ramsey, the Money Guys show, Allworth Financial. I even watch some of these other shows that are kind of just related to the economy. Michael Bordenero, is another one. Jack Morgan, RLP. You know, there's a lot of discussions about different economic issues and stuff. So I just try to kind of have a well-rounded approach, and it's really benefited me quite a bit. One other person, I think it's JL Collins. I believe it's JL. He's the guy that is big into like Vanguard and index funds and stuff like that. So he's another guy that I've listened to, and I've read some books also. Richest Man in Babylon, Millionaire Next Door. Those are a couple good ones just off the top of my head. So hope you guys have a great day. See you in the next one.